Now, this weekend we celebrate Women's Day in South Africa. Let's take a look at why.
On the 9th of August 1956, 20,000 women of all creeds and colours marched to the Union buildings in Pretoria. They were protesting a policy that forced black women to carry passbooks. They feared women being stopped on the streets and hassled by the authorities. The brave women left a petition containing more than 100,000 signatures and an indelible mark on African history. Prime Minister J.G. Strydom wasn't there to receive the petition, but that didn't dampen their cause. Clothed in strength and courage, they chanted the now famous phrase, "Wathinta bafazi, wathinta imbokodo." You strike a woman, you strike a rock. These words echo from generation to generation. In 1995, the year after the first democratic elections took place in South Africa, the first National Women's Day was commemorated in the country. Lillian Ngoyi, Helen Joseph, Albertina Sisulu, Sophie de Bruyn, these are the names that inspire the struggle for women's rights 25 years later.
Indeed, wathinta bafazi, wathinta imbokodo. Now, one of the children of that revolution is here with us. She was right in the thick of the struggle when the state of emergency was declared in the 1980s. She was arrested and banned from all educational institutions before she continued with her studies in the United States. She's now the chairperson of the IDC while also heading up the BRICS Business Council. I'm talking about none other than Busi Mabuza, who joins me now. Now, Busi, when you were arrested in the 1980s in the thick of, the state of emergency, did you ever think that you'd be sitting here with me talking about Women's Day and some of the freedoms that we enjoy as women?
The resolve of the people of the time was absolute. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I couldn't have thought that I would necessarily be sitting here, but I knew that freedom was inevitable. And I think many of us who were in the struggle at the time were so committed that there was no other option. So I'm pleased that I've lived long enough to see this day.
Now, talking about revolutionaries, Lillian Ngoyi, Albertina Sisulu, you inspire a lot of us. Is there a heroine in your life who inspires you that you look up to?
I look up to women from all walks of life. I can't not mention Mambeta Toa, who came from that breed of women who marched in 1956. But the person that I like talking about the most is my teacher, who, bless her soul, is still alive in her 90s and was last year still actively teaching at a private school. This was my geography teacher, who did not tolerate mediocrity, who looked for us to have initiative all the time. And she understood that all of us, as young as we were, men and women, had the ability. So I celebrate women of that ilk.
Talking about geography, now you were arrested and you were banned from all educational institutions in South Africa. So you couldn't carry on with your studies in South Africa. You actually had to go to the United States to further your studies. Then you came back in the 1990s. Just walk me through two things: how the environment was receiving a woman in business at that time in the 1990s, and it was also, the start of BEE, and also how things have changed now.
So I was very unfortunate in that I missed out on the very first elections in South Africa, but I came immediately after that. That was in early 1995. And the environment was abuzz. I think young Black professionals were very much in demand, but the environment was very strange in many ways because I had been out for quite some time. I was very lucky to come back into Investec Asset Management in Cape Town, and that was a young company which was still in formative stages. And I think we held each other's hands in moving along. So there were challenges in the environment, I must say. South Africans were getting to know each other in a very different context. All of a sudden, we had to see each other as equals. In a professional environment, we had to treat each other professionally. I had the benefit of having had international experience, which of course, gave me the confidence that what we had fought for was only right. And I think the environment was ready for that. I'm very sad, though, that the gains that seemed to be coming to the fore at that time seem to have been lost in the 20 years that we have been in the democracy. And I believe that has to change. It can't be that in 2020, we are still talking about the first Black woman vice chancellor, the first Black woman chancellor, the first Black woman chairperson of a board on one of the JSE listed companies. That has to change. And I am pleased that the JSE has now put in place regulations which focus board directors' minds on such issues of inequities.
Now, industries have been battered by the COVID-19 pandemic. We are living in, a space of adversity, and I know that a lot of innovation does come from adversity. As the chairperson of the IDC, are you seeing any applications of businesses that are being innovative at this time? And also, what is your outlook on infrastructure?
So the most important, the most critical infrastructure, no doubt, that has been shown up by this pandemic is the information and communications technology infrastructure. I wouldn't be able to do this interview with you under these COVID circumstances if I didn't have the facilities that I have here and now. And I believe that government and business now has to focus on making sure that we roll out broadband infrastructure across the country, rural and urban areas, poor and rich areas. We have to make sure that women have access to such infrastructure, not just for their safety, but also for productivity. This is going to enable the innovation that you refer to. It's going to enable economic activity that this country so deeply needs. So I think progress has been made, but clearly this pandemic has shown us that it's not enough. We are just at the beginning. I am so pleased that there is now deeper focus from the government side on infrastructure as an enabler of economic regeneration, but also clearly it's an enabler to economic activity. And I look forward to seeing more of that coming to the fore.
Well, thank you very much for talking to us, Busi. Thank you for your insights and for your great contribution to the continent. You are truly inspiring. That was Busi Mabuza, the chairperson of the Industrial Development Corporation, also known as the IDC.